What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. 4-game slate last night. The Senators-Sabres game was a game. That second period was one of the dumbest periods of hockey I've seen so far this season. It looked like the Senators were just going to absolutely bury the Sabres after the Sabres kept taking needless penalty after needless penalty. They didn't do anything, and then the Sabres converted on the next 6 power plays or some crazy shit like that. But the Blackhawks third line doing some work. The Blues, that Bolduc trade has not aged well so far this season. We'll see how that goes, but we have 11 games here tonight. We got big boys on the slate. We don't have a Shark slate hammer, so we are blessed for that. Joining me to break it down, some Cliffy, what's going
on? Not a whole lot. Really interesting Sabres-Sens game. Buffalo had 0 power play goals to start the season going into last night. Their first power play goal was Jack Quinn firing the puck wide off the glass, bounces off the glass, comes over the net, bounces off the back of mirror line and into the net. That's how they got their first one. Buffalo scored 3 power play goals last night. So they started this season. They went a week without a power play goal. Now they're 13th in the league in power play efficiency. That's what one game against the Sens penalty kill will do. I ended up having a decent night. I went about 5X. Certainly take that on a shorter slate. I had the Buffalo stack, but I went with Thompson, Benson, and Doan. I didn't have Zucker. I didn't have Tuck. Those guys obviously did extremely well. If you look at the top of the leaderboards, at least in the contest I was playing, it was Buffalo Josh stacks. The Sabres went ham last night. Chicago, 8 goals. Honestly, that's way crazier than what the Sabres did last night. Dickinson had 1, Mikheyev had 1. I think Bedard had 3 assists. Pretty good night. Interesting night here tonight. Obviously, it's a much larger slate. We have 11 games here tonight. We have a lot of the big boys on the slate. It's basically just kind of like Tampa Bay that's missing. We have Toronto, we have Colorado, we have Edmonton, we have New Jersey, we have Dallas, we have Carolina. There are a lot of top lines, top players, expensive stacks to go through. So, there's you always could factor in ownership, but I'm looking at the top stacks right now. The top line's at 15%. There are only 4 lines above 10%. So it really does feel like one of those nights where if you make a lineup and you like it, just go with it. I wouldn't really be overly concerned about ownership on a night like tonight, because I do think it will be spread out just because we do have so many top lines all over the board.
Yeah. And Frostback says we have the Ducks. I'm sure he has the Ducks. I don't know about the rest of us having the Ducks, but before we get into this, if you haven't joined yet, and you're looking to go premium, you don't have to. We won't make you do it. But if you want to support us further, you can click that link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off your first week or month of any subscription. Doesn't even have to be NHL. You could use it on whatever you want. Ray Rock, back for another season. Our resident Flyers fan. This is an interesting spot for them tonight, and we'll obviously get there soon enough. But let's get into this slate. First game on the night. Florida Panthers with a 2.7 total. Heading into New Jersey, the Devils have a 3.3 back-to-back on the road for the Panthers. They lost in Detroit last night to Cam Talbot. I was wrong about Talbot. You were right about Talbot. You're generally right about Talbot. I'm generally wrong about Talbot. Anyway, it's going to be who's their backup? Daniil Tarasov going for the Panthers here tonight. Jake Allen for the Devils. Jacob Markstrom got banged up. Jake Allen left last game hurt too, but I guess he's back. They called up Nico Dawes.
It was weird because Allen got hurt, and then Markstrom came in, and then Markstrom got hurt, and now they had to call it their AHL goalie. So that's kind of where the New Jersey goaltending situation is right now.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. Like, Allen's a good backup, but you don't want him starting 50 games a season. He just won't make it. But anyway, Devils going Meyer, Hischier, Mercer, Hughes, Bratt, Palat. Florida, they mixed up their lines in the third period last night.
I mean, they did that right out of the gate. They started last night with the lines that we were expecting. And then after one shift, Reinhart got moved with Verhaeghe and Rodriguez, and then Bogfist got moved with Lundell and Luostarinen. And they played like that for the rest. I mean, most of the rest of the game. They did change it up a bit in the third period.
Marchand was with Lundell for a little bit.
Looking for a goal, yeah. So we don't really know what the line combos are going to be for Florida just yet. That's something we're definitely going to have to pay attention to when warm-ups roll around.
The Devils changed up their power play quarterback, going to Luke Hughes instead of Dougie. I don't like that.
I mean, isn't this the third change they've made already this season? This is day 9 of the NHL season. It's the third time they've changed their power play quarterback.
Just leave Dougie there. It's better. Look at the numbers. It's not hard. You have an analytics department. But anyway, I'm not the coach. That's fine. Should be. I kind of have interest in the Devils here. There's a lot of teams on this slate. There really isn't a ton in the 17 to 19,000 range. Like, there's one really good spot, and then you have, a handful of lines in that range, the Devils being one of them. They're not getting a ton of ownership here. The Hischier line getting 6%, the Hughes line getting 4.2%. I don't know what the Florida lines are going to be, and that's kind of a bit annoying because Lundell, Luostarinen, and Reinhart are really, really good defensively. But if they move like Bockwist there, they still should be fine, but I would imagine that the top two lines avoid them anyway. You're going to see Hughes go out against Bennett and then Hischier go out against Evan Rodriguez or vice versa. So I honestly don't mind either of the top two Devils lines here. I don't know if I'm going to get there in single entry, but, in MME, I would definitely have them in my mix at that ownership percentage and their price. It is Tarasoff and net for Florida because Bob went last night. So, you want to do Hischier, Meyer, Hughes. You want a power play stack, go double center. I think that's an interesting way to stack the Devils. Not super interested, but not interested, if that makes sense. I'm kind of a little bit weary on the Panthers. They got shut down by the Wings last night, who actually have been very good defensively this season, but back-to-back on the road, 2.7 road total is one of the lower road totals. There are some pretty big road totals, and back-to-back on the road on an 11-game slate is not super ideal for me. If it was a shorter slate, I'd probably have more interest. I played Mackie Samoskevich last night. He gave me a whopping bagel. But, if you want to go back to a one-off Samoskevich, he generally does shoot the puck. Last night he had problems hitting the net. I think he could go back there, but there's not really anything that I'm looking to stack on Florida.
Yeah, I'll be quick on Florida here. Especially early in the season, you do want to use power play guys because it happens year after year. There are way more power plays in the first month of the season than there is over the rest of the season. Power play, total number of power plays per game starts pretty high for the first month, maybe 6 weeks, and then it really trails off as the season wears on. Florida's power play we've talked about it a couple times already on this show. If you look at the top power play unit, they're at about 7 expected goals per 60 minutes. Last year when Barkov and Tkachuk were healthy, it was over 10. This power play is just not nearly what it was when they had their superstars healthy. And then you had the New Jersey Devils who had, they did have one of the best penalty kills in the league last season. This season, I think they've given up 1 goal. Their PK their expected goals against on the PK is the second best in the NHL. So this is a really, really bad power play matchup for Florida. Add that to that we don't know what the line combinations are going to be. Add that to they're below average at 5-on-5 by expected goals. I just don't think, if you're playing 150, you consider everyone in a single entry. I'm just not getting to the Panthers forwards. Honestly, on the New Jersey side, this is a case where if I was playing a lot of lineups, if I was playing it like at least a 20 max or something, then I would go consider New Jersey. But even without Barkov or whatever in the lineup, the Panthers are still pretty good defensively. Their expected goal, the top pair of Forsling and Ekblad, like their expected goals against is like 1.8, which is basically like what it was last year. Like they are just great. And even the second pair is a little bit better than league average. Like this isn't really a great matchup for New Jersey, but that second line has been pretty good. Meyer, Hischier, and Mercer, you do get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. That's probably where I would go. But to me, this just looks like a really bad matchup at 5-on-5 for New Jersey and a really bad matchup on the power play for Florida. And if this was 5 or 6 games, I would give it a lot more consideration. Single entry with 22 teams on the slate. I'm just passing.
Yeah. Colorado Avalanche, they 3.5 total heading into Columbus. Our Blue Jackets have a 2.9 total. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, Nelson, Nishushkin, Landeskog. Columbus with new lines here with Miles and Miles of Wood. He's out for at least a week with that eye injury. He looked nasty. Marchenko, Monahan, Kent Johnson, Fantilli, Voronkov, Sillinger, Jenner, Coyle, Olivier. See, what I'm wondering, if they put Coyle with Jenner, that they're going to send those two out against the McKinnon line.
I will say they have been using that third line. I mean, we're only a week into the season here, so we still have to wait for trends to develop. But they were using that third line in a shutdown role, not like hard matching like the Stahl line or anything like that, but they will use them.
Yeah, and I like Jenner, I like Olivier. Coyle's fine as a bottom 6 center. I just don't think they can hang with Colorado 1 here. But what that does is it does kind of free up Columbus 1 for a little bit better matchups. Like they'll obviously avoid Makar and Taze. They will, Girard's out, so their back end of their blue line isn't great. They're 15,900. Colorado is still a good defensive team. They generally have a good PK. Columbus 1 is coming in at 1.6% projected at 15,900. I'm not saying let's go out and, just slam Columbus 1 here, but I do like them at that price if you can't get up into the mid 17s, whatever, and you're looking for a mid-range build. I don't mind them. The other lines on Columbus, I don't really have faith that they're going to stick. Like, I have a decent feeling Kent Johnson will stay. Monahan and Marchenko are going to stick together. I feel like they're going to, mix and match their other lines because Yegor Chinnikov is in the lineup for the first time on the 4th line. Maybe he moves up with Fantilli and Voronkov at some point. You know what I mean? So would be Columbus 1 for me. That seems like a more MME type deal. For me, it is Colorado 1. They're 21,700, 19% top 2 stack, 4.8% projected ownership. 21,700 for a fully correlated Colorado isn't really that bad. We've seen them in the 24,000s at points. They're coming in with heavy positive leverage here. It is Merzlikins in net. Columbus still struggles defensively. I do really like Colorado 1. It's just a matter of, on an 11-game slate, do you want to spend 21,700 for a line? If you're comfortable getting them in a lineup with a second line and you feel good about it, then I say do it. It's just basically your risk tolerance on how you want to build your lineup and get your second lines in and all that stuff. That's really the only line I have a ton of interest in. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in Nelson, Nishushkin, and Landeskog at that price, 15,400. I'd rather just play Columbus 1. So it would be both top lines here.
Yeah. Speaking of power play matchups, this is a pretty good one for Colorado. Columbus is bottom 10 in the league by both expected goals and actual goals against per 60 on the penalty kill. Now, Minnesota did a lot of that damage. But it's not like Colorado has a bad penalty kill or a bad power play, either. So I do think this is a pretty good matchup for that Colorado power play. 21,700 is a reasonable price. 6 weeks from now, this line could be 24,000. And that's not, that's not hyperbole either. It could be 24 to 25,000. So it is a fairly reasonable price. I don't think Columbus is a great defensive team. I do think that they're better than they were last year. Still not something to be feared, especially when you see how bad that they are with the penalty kill. So yeah, I really do like Colorado. I mean, there is a reason why Colorado 1 is at the top of the board by top 2 stack percentage. And it honestly isn't really that close. They're like, relatively speaking, they're like 33% higher than the next closest team. This is a pretty good spot for the Abs, and it is Merzlikins starting. If it was Greaves, that would certainly be something that'd give me pause, because I do think Greaves is a good goalie. Merzlikins has only played 1 game and he looked fine, but he's generally not been a very good goalie over the last few years. So yeah, Colorado 1, like if you're looking to spend up, like if you're looking to spend like over 19K or over 20K or whatever on a top line, I think this is the one to use. And there are some super cheap lines that are playable. We'll get to those later in the slate. So it's Colorado 1 for me. I think Colorado 2 is playable. They're not really generating much shot quality yet. I do wonder how much of it is the blue line, right? Sam Girard's hurt. They're really not playing Sam Malinsky that much. They're number 6 defenseman. I had honestly never heard of him, the guy that they called up to play in place of Girard. Like, Josh Manson isn't the guy that he was 3 or 4 years ago. Brent Burns is 40 years old. Like, once you get past Makar and Taves, who play all the time with the McKinnon line, so that's fine. That's great for them. But once you get past that, it's basically just Sam Malinsky you can really rely on, and they're only playing him 14 or 15 minutes a game. So I think for me, it's Colorado 1 or bust on their side. Honestly, I do like the Columbus side here tonight. Like, we said it the last time Columbus was on the show. Monahan and Marchenko were one of the best offensive duos in the league last year. They had 3.6 expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Quick math off the top of my head, that's about 40% better than the league average. Like, they were incredible. They're at the exact same number so far this year, 3.6 expected goals per 60 minutes. And they've obviously, Marchenko's had a hat trick. They played very well. And they're cheap, like 15,900. They are a mid-price stack. So if you're looking to use a couple mid-price stacks here tonight, you can use them with Zach Werenski, even though Zach Werenski's 8K here. Like, you can make that, type of build here tonight. The Columbus power play has been a bit better than it was last year. I don't think it's something to be feared or anything like that, but I do think that they're better. And at 15,900, that just feels like a pretty cheap price to me. So I really do like Columbus 1. Columbus 2, I mean, they're not using Adam Fantilli on the power play. I hate Cole Sillinger with a fire of 1,000 suns. I'm just out on that line. If you want to dip down to the third line for a super cheap line, I guess. But for me, this is a game about the top lines. Factoring in price and all that, I do kind of like Colorado 1 better. But like I said last week, on huge slates like this, I don't really like to spend 22,000 on main stacks. So I'll probably be more likely to play Columbus than Colorado. But yeah, I think both are in pretty good spots here tonight.
Carson Soucy for Yegor Chinnikov. Who says no? Don't answer that. It was rhetorical. Nashville Predators with a 2.7 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 3.2 total. Montreal going Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Bolduc, Gallagher, Doc, quite possibly the greatest line in the history of the NHL. Line A, Evans, Anderson, Demidov, Newhook, Kapanen. Demidov had a really good game the other night. Nasty tape-to-tape passes. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there thinking about Ivan Demidov and how I have 0 in Best Puck. But Philip Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, they're loading the top line. Marchessault, Bunting, Halla, Evangelista, Svechkov, Tyson Yost in the year 2025. I like Montreal here. It's not that big of a surprise. What is a little bit surprising, they have a 3.2 total, which is fairly large. And they're getting no ownership. Now, Montreal top line is 18,400. That's a little pricey, but not really for them. 7.2% top 2 stack, 3.3% projected ownership. outside of the one game where they had in hand and Suzuki played only 15 minutes, he's played basically 21 minutes, 22 minutes, and 19 minutes in those 3 other games. He's getting heavy minutes. There isn't a line that I fear defensively from Nashville. So, at that ownership, I do really like Montreal 1 here. If you don't want to spend $18,400, if you want one of those filler lines that can fit with anything here tonight, the Bolduc line, I think going back there makes some sense. They're 10,700. I don't even think you need a full stack. You can, but I'd, do like a 2-man Doc Bolduc, Gallagher Bolduc, something like that. You want to even go down to Newhook Demidov, fine. But I think it would be the Suzuki line and the Bolduc line for me. On the flip side, at 16,600 for Nashville 1, it feels kind of underpriced. Stamkos isn't the guy he was 3 years ago. And yes, O'Reilly's offensive numbers have fallen off since he was in St. Louis, but there's 16,600. Let's not forget that, yes, Montreal's an improved defensive team, but they're still not great. They take a lot of penalties. Arbor Xhekaj's out of the lineup, it looks like, so that probably helps with the penalty taking. But at 16,600, they're kind of in that same basket for me as Columbus 1. It's if I'm doing some kind of mid-range build, they would be a line that I would consider, because even when they weren't together, Stamkos moved up to that line regardless. So that tells me they're going to actually stick together unless they're getting absolutely lambasted here tonight. So I do like that Nashville top line, but I prefer the Montreal side.
Yeah. We've said it before on this show, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, legitimately one of the top scoring lines in the NHL over the last 2+ seasons. Surprised they're doing well again this year. 4.4 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. That's just tremendous. The Montreal power play on top of that, over 13 expected goals per 60 minutes for the top unit. They're generating really good quality. I think Bolduc is part of that. He's a net front presence that they really haven't had on that top power play unit over the last few years. So I really do like Montreal 1 here. I'm not overly concerned about any of the matchups coming back the other way from Nashville. They're basically middle of the league defensively to start the season. And I think that's probably about right for where they're going to end up over the balance of the season. Now, they're not taking very many penalties yet. That's the one thing. I mean, that and UC Saros, the fact that, Saros is rested. He looked really good to start the season. Those things are kind of holding me back a little bit. But Montreal 1 is legitimately one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the league. And if all of a sudden their power plays top 6 or top 8 in the league, they're going to be way more productive than they were last year. So I do like Montreal 1 at 18,400. There are a lot of lines in that price range, and we'll talk about them. But I'm going to be honest, if you're looking above 17K, I would rather play them than either of the New Jersey lines that we talked about. Than both New Jersey lines, 17,200, 17,400. So I do think if you're not going to pay all the way up for a Colorado or Carolina, you're looking to save a couple grand. I think this Montreal top line should be near the top of the list. The Bolduc line, the Bolduc Gallagher Doc line has been good. So far on the season, they're sitting at a 72% expected goal share, 3.7 expected goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. They don't get a ton of ice time. That's the one problem, but that's also factored into the price. So if you are playing an expensive Colorado or an expensive Carolina or something like that, that line's 10,700. You get Bolduc on the top power play unit. I do think they're fine as a filler stack here tonight, but I do like Montreal 1 better. On the Nashville side, the one thing that worries me about Nashville is last year, we said it on Tuesday's show, they legitimately had Tuesday. They legitimately had a very good power play. That hasn't been the case so far this year. And where Montreal, they are prone to taking penalties. You really do want that power play upside, but Nashville, one power play goal in 17 opportunities so far this year. Their expected goals rate is down like 30% from last year. It hasn't been pretty. So I do think Nashville 1 is in play here, but at 16,600, like for a mid-price, like I'd rather save the $700 and go play Columbus 1. And honestly, that's a pretty easy decision for me. So I think Nashville 1's in play, but for me, that'd be more of a 20 max, certainly 150 type thing than it would be single entry. To me, this is a Montreal game. It's just a matter if you want to pay up for the top line or if you want to use the Bolduc line as a filler.
Yep. And there's also another mid-price line in this next game, which is interesting, and let's talk about it. Winnipeg Jets with a 3.1 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.8. Winnipeg going Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Chibrikov, Iafallo, Jonathan Toews, Niederreiter.
No, I think they moved Tanner Pearson onto that line.
Oh, right. Yeah, Tanner Pearson. Yeah. Okay. Like that. Nikita Chibrikov is Russian for Tanner Pearson with Iafallo, Jonathan Toews, and then Niederreiter, Nemestikov, Gustav Nyquist. Flyers going Konechny, Michkov, Couturier, Tippett, Zegras, Dvorak, Forrester, Brink, Cates. How about that Dvorak goal? It was like a week ago, or in front of the empty net. Just
redirected it on the empty net. Yeah, just just perfect.
It was so good. But yeah, this is an interesting game because Winnipeg is very banged up, and once you get past that Morrissey pairing, it is a mess. Fat V. His interpreter legitimately looks like Tony Soprano. It is, and he's definitely Russian, and he wears tracksuits, and it makes me nervous. But yeah, he was out of shape because he hurt his ankle or something like that. But this is an interesting game for Winnipeg 1. No one's playing them. 1.5% projected ownership, and it's a price thing, really. 21,300. It's like I'll just find 400 and go play Colorado 1. You know what I mean? But like, they're going to see a bunch of that Couturier line. And at the best of times last year, they were playing pond hockey. So, and if you ever, this might be a time to break out the flow chart. If they're really low owned, it's a play. I'm not saying go do it in single entry. I'd much rather go play Colorado 1. Very hard to prioritize Winnipeg in that price range when Colorado's there. But like, I don't know, man, 1.5% Winnipeg has the possibility to break a slate here. I would definitely consider them in 20 max, 150 max. I'd be over the field. I don't 150 max, but if I was, I'd at least get, 3, 4, 5% of Winnipeg 1. The depth of Winnipeg is not great, Bob. So, like, I don't really want to go play Jonathan Toews in the year 2025. Honestly, like, if I was going to spend $10,900 for a line in this game, it would be Cates, Brink, and Forrester. So, that's a filler line that I would consider to throw in the basket. Like, I'm not a huge game stack fan on a 11-game slate, but Winnipeg 1 with the Cates line makes some sense. They make sense with Colorado. They make sense with the other expensive lines like an Edmonton power play stack or whatever. If you want to go to Couturier, Michkov, Konechny, fine. They're like 15,400. They're kind of in that range. But again, I'd rather go play Columbus 1. Hellebuck in his first game this season gave up 5 goals and still had a positive goals saved above expected. He's still Hellebucking. It's just that, like, the blue line is really, really hurt, and that's a big problem for them. So I don't love the Flyers, but it's one of those, like, yeah, like their Winnipeg bottom 6 and their second and third pairs are so bad. I think I would definitely consider Cates, Brink, and Forrester. I'd even give some thought to like Zegras, Tippett. If you want to play the top line, fine. I'd rather play Columbus 1. Winnipeg 1's my favorite line in this game, but this feels like an MME game for me.
Yeah, overall, I don't really like this game. Last year, Cates Brink, and Forster were pretty good offensively. 3.2 actual goals per 60, 2.7 expected goals per 60. Considering they're like a depth checking line for the Philadelphia Flyers, those are pretty good numbers. They've been good offensively again this year. Now they're riding a fairly hot shooting percentage. The line shooting 28% at 5-on-5. They are fine as a filler just because they're 10,900. If they're even 12,900, I'd say just keep moving along. But at 10,900, they are truly a line that you can fit in with, your Colorado and your Carolina and stuff like that. So I don't mind Forster, Brink, and Cates. It's probably the only line for me from that side. Just in general, these have been two of the slower paced teams in the league so far this year. Flyers 30th by shot attempts per 60 at 5-on-5. The Jets 31st. The Flyers power play has been better than it was last year. It's only been 3 games. We'll see how long that lasts. But that does matter. So I don't mind Forster, Brink, and Cates. If you just want to use Forster and Cates as a cheap 2-man, to get up to your Colorados or whatever, I think that's fine. As for the top line, going after it feels like chasing that Couturier 4-point game. You know what I mean? And they haven't looked great. I mentioned to you this morning, Travis Konechny's lost over 3 minutes per game compared to last season. Mitchkov's playing 14 and a half minutes a game. I don't know, man. That's just not enough for me. On the Winnipeg side, they do worry me because this feels like you said, this feels like one of those games where they put up 4 shots and nothing else, or they just destroy the slate with 5 goals. You know what I kind of agree with you that they do have that slate breaking ability, and that's what really kind of worries me here. I mean, that's one thing that worries me. The other thing that worries me is that Sam Ersson started. Not totally, I tried to convince myself that maybe he'd be better under Rick Tocchet. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. The thing is at 21,300, and Cam York is back for the Flyers tonight too. And him and Travis Sanheim were a pretty good defense pair last year. So I imagine they see a bunch of York and Sanheim. I'd rather just pay up and go play Colorado. If Colorado was 11% ownership and this line was 1%, I'd be I think you could probably go with Winnipeg. But where Colorado's at 5%, it's they're going to be really low owned anyway. So to me, Winnipeg won. I agree with you. They're more like an MME. I think the only line I really have any interest in here is Brink, Cates, and Forster, because they're going to see a lot of the defensive depth from Winnipeg, and that defensive depth is bad.
Real bad. Let's talk about a bad game. Speaking of bad, Seattle Kraken with a 2.8 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.2. Senators played last night. They got trounced 8-4. Now Linus Ullmark is in net, but Philip Grubauer in net for Seattle. Seattle going McCann, Eberle, Beniers, Marchment, Wright, Tolvanen, Schwartz, Stevenson, Winterton. Ottawa going Stützle, Zetterlund, Amadio, Batherson, Cousins, Perron, Pinto, Giroux, Grieg. Now,
they moved up Giroux last night, right?
Yeah, they
in a Amadio spot, and they also called up Arthur Kaliev today. So, yeah. So
play 9 minutes on the fourth line.
Exactly. I'm assuming he goes to the fourth line, but that's just another guy that they might want to mix into the top 9. So it's another spot like Florida. We're gonna have to see what it looks like in warmups.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Grubauer's atrocious. Seattle is mid.
Can I just say, I was looking earlier. Since the start of the 2023-24 season, Grubauer is the third worst by goal saved above expected per 60 minutes. And one of the 2 goalies that's worse than him is now retired. So I think the other one was Sam Ersson. So Grubauer, there's an argument Grubauer is, if not the worst, bottom 3 goalie in the league.
Yeah. And I really don't want to consider the Senators back-to-back without Brady Tkachuk But I'm staring at Pinto and Grieg here, knowing that they're going to see Chandler Stevenson at some point with Philip Grubauer in that. And like they've been getting minutes too for a third line. And Grieg's on the top power play unit. If Giroux's there, they're 11-6. If Amadio's there, they're even cheaper. I have no problem going back to Pinto Grieg here. Like, it's no shock that Chandler Stevenson is still getting run over this season. So, like, it would be that Ottawa third line here. If you want to go to Batherson, Cousins, Perron, the issue that I have there, they're only 12,600. They're coming in with almost 15% projected ownership. For $1,000 less, you can get a fifth of the ownership and more action with Chandler Stevenson. So, like, it's not like there's a huge minute disparity either. So, yeah, if you want to go to Cousins, Batherson, Perron, like, that's beautiful. Go ahead. Just know that there's a lot of ownership there. I take the lower ownership, take the lower price, and go with Pinto Grieg. On the flip side, Ullmark, listen, I said Mierlainen could be a starter in this league, and he just got absolutely torched for 8 goals last night. Happens, but I like Ullmark obviously is a good goalie. Now Seattle's going to score like 9 goals, but each of them are going to come like all 4 lines are going to score. So it's like, where do you go? It would probably be McCann, Eberle, Beniers at 13.9. If you have a lean to right Marchman, Tolvanen, cool. But if I was playing Seattle, it would be Beniers, McCann, Eberle.
Yeah, I mean, on the Ottawa side, again, we do have to kind of see what that lineup looks like. I agree with you. I do kind of like Pinto and Grieg here, one, because they're going to see that depth from Seattle. And like the Beniers line has been legitimately good, and I'll talk about them in a second. But the rest of the lines, especially that Stevenson line, like, holy hell, they are getting just slammed. And like you said, add Philip Grubauer into the mix, and it's a pretty good setup for Ottawa. And, you know, Ottawa does, you know, kind of have, you know, I think they scored 1 power play goal yesterday, but again, like, this is a team whose power play is going to be worse, should be worse without Brady Tkachuk. I mentioned yesterday on the show, expected goals and actual goals down 25% over the last few years when he hasn't been on the top power play unit. But this isn't a matchup where you're stacking the Sens for the power play, right? Like, Seattle was one of the least penalized teams in the NHL last year. They are the least penalized team in the NHL this year. You're stacking the Sens for the 5-on-5. And even strength, whatever. So Pinto and Grieg makes sense to me as another one of those like filler type stacks that you can use with the more expensive guys. So I do like Pinto and Grieg here. It is a back-to-back, but I really don't think much of this Seattle team, like, at all. If Joey Decord was in net, I'd probably say I'm passing with maybe the worst goalie in the NHL in net. And again, anything can happen in one game. Like, maybe Grubauer pitches a 37-save shutout. I'd be pretty surprised, but it's possible. But I think the most likely scenario is that he's just not very good, because that's what he's been for the last 4 years. So Pinto, Grieg, and whoever's with them, whether it's Giroux, whether it's Amadio, maybe it's Kaliev, who knows. So at the very least, Pinto and Grieg, I think, is a nice 2-man here. On the Seattle side, in general, I wouldn't have a problem playing McCann, Eberle, and Beniers. They have actually been fairly good this year offensively. If you look at their shot numbers, 69 shot attempts, 4.6 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. McCann, 22.5 shot attempts per 60. Matty Beniers, 19.5 shot attempts per 60. That was a big problem with Beniers in the last couple of seasons, that he didn't shoot. If he keeps up even like 75% of that, he's a completely different type of fantasy player. The thing is, they're going to run into that Sanderson-Zub pairing, and even without Brady Tkachuk, that is a brutal pairing to go up against. And it's not like Seattle's power play is any good. They still split the power play time. I don't mind Seattle one here. For me, I think that'd be more like a 20 max thing, 150 than it would be single entry. I think it's Pinto and Grieg that I have really only have interest in from this game. I think you're on mute.
I'm on mute. New York Rangers with a 2.7 total. Heading into Toronto, the Leafs have a 3.2. I don't even remember muting myself. Anyway, Toronto going Matthews, Nyes, Easton, Cowan. Nylander wasn't at morning skate this morning. He is confirmed in, though. I'm not sure why he missed skate. Maybe he had an appointment at the spa for his hair. Tavares, Nylander, and Michelli. McMahon, Domi, Robertson. Two things can be true here about the Rangers. They've been bad, but they've also have had bad luck. In their 3 games at home, they've scored 0 goals, but they've had it's like 9.87 expected goals, right? Also, if you take out empty net goals this season, they've given up 4 goals in 5 games. So, like, there's good things there. They're just running pretty bad, but they also don't have very good finishers, so that also could be a problem. But on the Rangers side, like Panarin, Zibanejad, Lafreniere at 18K is it's just a bad price. And it's just not a line combo that I generally like anyway. They really should flip Panarin with somebody to go play with JT Miller. But again, not the coach. I'm out on that Rangers top line. It's just a bad price. The line isn't that great, dating back seasons. Miller, Cooley, Sheary. Like, I'm not running out to play Connor Sheary on an 11-game slate, but that line in a small sample has been decent offensively. Don't mind like a Miller, Cooley one-off. Like, the Leafs are who they are. Like, their blue line isn't great. Their penalty kill isn't great. Stellaris has been fine. If anything on the Rangers side, it would be a JT Miller, Cooley 2-man. On the Leafs side, the Leafs top line is interesting because 17,600, 8.8% top, or 8.6% top 2 stack, 8.8% projected ownership. I don't like making living stacking against Igor Shesterkin on a big slate, and that's the one thing that gives me pause. Like, yes, the Gavrikov-Fox pairing hasn't been elite to start the season, but as time goes on, they're just going to get better. Igor has had a very, very strong start to this season. In single entry, I don't know if I can prioritize the Leafs. I'll never say no to Matthews. Like, there's guys that are just matchup proof who I will just say, go play if you want to one off them, like Matthews, Pasternak, those type of guys. As a line stack, I'm not sure I can get there. The second line is interesting because once you get past Fox and Gavrikov, that's where it gets a little bit sketchy. But Igor's had a great start to the season. I don't mind a Nylander one-off. The full line is 16.9. Like, that's a tough-ish price with 5% projected ownership. Like, for a couple $100 more, you can go play Vegas, which we'll talk about later. So I think on the Leafs side, I'd be sticking to more one-offs. Rangers side, I don't love. If I had to play a line, it'd be Miller and Cooley.
So far this season, the Toronto Maple Leafs are dead last at drawing power play opportunities, and they weren't very good last year either. Now, they're not giving up a ton of power play opportunities, so it's kind of going both ways in that sense, which maybe the coach will take, maybe he won't, but, being dead last in power play opportunities is not great. Now, they've only played 4 games. We'll see where things stand after they played 14 games. But again, this wasn't a team that drew a ton of power plays last season. They're at 2.7 power play opportunities per game, which was about league average. So, it's not a great sign. And on top of that, I think the first day that we had the Leafs on the slate, we talked about how losing Marner would affect the power play. So far this season, the top power play unit, their expected goals rate is down 32% compared to what it was last year when they had Marner on the top power play. So they're drawing no power play opportunities. They haven't scored yet on the power play. And the power play itself is considerably worse than it was last year. Like, that's a really bad combination for me. I also don't think very much of the Toronto blue line. Like, they do have trouble moving the puck. I mean, it's funny. They just put up 7 goals. I mean, a couple empty netters was really the difference. You can't
6
bank.
Is more than a couple.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you can't bank on like 2 or 3 empty netters every single game. So, I mean, I think if anything, it would be Matthews, Nyes, and Cowan. Like, I've been kind of impressed with Easton Cowan. They need a sixth forward to put in that top six. So I imagine they're just going to keep going with him until it doesn't work anymore. But I would probably go with Matthews, Nyes, and Cowan just because it's a $17,600 Leafs top line. It's fairly cheap, mid-price, middle of the road. Again, without that power play up, like if this was a 7-game slate, I'd be way more interested. The fact that we have 22 teams and the Leafs power play has just been so bad with so few opportunities, and you're facing Igor Shesterkin, like that Leafs top line is definitely not at the top of the priority list for me in that mid-price range. Like, they're kind of in that New Jersey mix where, like, if I was 20 maxing or something, we'll get to the teams later, but like, I'd rather play the Rangers top line. I'll be honest. I don't think a whole lot of the Toronto penalty kill. Like the Toronto PK was not good last year. It was one of their big Achilles heels. So far this season, they've been a little bit better, but still basically like league average by expected goals against. Again, they're not giving up a ton of power play opportunities, so that's saving them. But I don't mind the Rangers top line here. But again, if we're looking at around that $18K price range, like Montreal one's only $400 more expensive. We'll get to the Vegas lines. There's 2 Vegas lines right in that price range as well, coming with a bit more ownership. We'll get to the Kings later in the slate. So like, I just think that there are other spots I would rather go to. Generally speaking, honestly, I would rather play the Rangers top line. The top line is the only thing I have interest in. I don't really have a ton of interest in the second and third lines. I think Cooley and Miller are fine just because the Leafs, this could be a game about 5-on-5 and not power plays, but I usually take the perfect power play correlation when I can get her. So Rangers 1, Toronto 1, but for me in single entry 3 max, that type of thing, the Rangers interest me more than the Leafs do.
Edmonton Oilers with a 3.3 total heading into Long Island. That sucks. The Islanders have a 2.7. Islanders going Horvat, Drouin, Heineman, Barzal, Palmieri, Duclair, Lee, J.G. Pajot, Shabanov. New lines for Edmonton. They broke apart McDavid and Draisaitl. It's McDavid, Mangiapane, Tomasek, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Roslovic. I do not like these lines on either side. The problem is it's Big Save Dave in net for the Islanders. It's not what's his name? Sorokin. Not that Sorokin's been anything special to start this season. He's actually been really bad. Big Save Dave, not Sorokin. I see 12% projected ownership on Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Roslovic. Nugent Hopkins is a far cry from the player he was 2-3 years ago when he had like 55 power play points. No Hyman still. Like Roslovic is fine, but for 15,900 there, I'd rather just play the McDavid line. Rather just play Columbus 1, you know what I mean? So I think I would go to Edmonton 1 here, McDavid, Mangiapane, Tomasek. You get Tomasek and McDavid on the top power play unit. If you want to make it an expensive stack, you can leave off Mangiapane and add in Draisaitl. Like this Islanders team isn't good. It's just these lines for Edmonton aren't good either. So it would be some sort of power play stack for me on the Oilers side. If I had to choose a line, it would be the McDavid line. On the Islanders side, I don't really love any of these lines. I'd probably just go to Horvat, Drouin, Heineman just because they're 13,600. They're coming in under 2%, but like I don't really love the Islanders here. Edmonton with Ekholm in the lineup. Good defensively, good penalty kill. The Islanders' power play sucks. So, like, I really don't like the Islanders here.
Yeah, so I'll start on the Islanders side. I know why they moved Anders Lee to the third line, and it was because the third line was getting their ass beat night in and night out, and they wanted a good player to put down there to kind of help them out. So I get that. But it sucks because it takes a very good winger away from Matt Barzal. And if you look over the last few years, The Islanders take 22% fewer shots when Barzal's on the ice without Anders Lee. That's how much of an impact Lee has offensively. So it takes me away from that line. Horvat, Heineman, and Drouin is kind of interesting to me. Horvat and Heineman so far this season, 71 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Every player on that line is between 15 and 17 individual shot attempts per 60 minutes, which is actually good volume. Both Horvat and Drouin over 1 expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. And you're right. I do think the Oilers are a pretty good defensive team. I think they have arguably the best defensive group in the NHL, when Wallman is healthy. It's still Stuart Skinner in net. Now, I know he just got a shutout. Like I said about with Grubauer, it's things happen all the time with goaltending. That's just what goaltending is. But I honestly don't mind the Horvat line. They get good ice time. You have 2 out of the 3 correlated on the power play at 13,600. They're nearly a filler stack, so you can play them with your Rangers, your Devils, your Montreals, those types of things, and still get a fairly expensive defenseman in. So I don't mind Horvat, Drouin, and Heineman. I actually like Heineman as a player too, former Montreal guy. He's not a top liner, but it is what it is. But it's the Edmonton side that interests me more, and it is some sort of power play stack. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, McDavid's 8,500, Draisaitl's 8,100. When those guys are going, they're both over 9K. McDavid will push 10K. So I think they're somewhat underpriced. The other is David Tomasek. He is 3,200, playing on the top line, top power play unit. So you get a guy who is skating with McDavid at all offensive strengths at 3,200. Mangiapane, take him or leave him, for whatever. But Tomasek has a pretty good shot volume already on the power play so far this season. I think he's second on the team, only behind Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and he plays the net front role like Zach Hyman did, which is fine. So you can do a McDavid, Draisaitl, Tomasek stack, and it's not really that expensive. It's basically in line with your Colorado and Carolina. And the reason why you might want to do that is the Islanders had a very bad penalty kill last year, one of the worst in the league. What saved them was that they didn't take a ton of penalties. Well, that's not the case so far this year. They're basically league average by giving up power play opportunities per game so far, and they are dead last in the NHL by expected goals against on the penalty kill. They are dead last by shot attempts allowed per 60 minutes on the penalty kill. This is not a good PK. The only thing that has saved them, believe it or not, is Ilya Sorokin playing very well on the PK, and Ilya Sorokin's not starting tonight. Honestly, I'd still prefer Colorado in a nutshell. I do think this is a pretty good spot for making some sort of Edmonton power play stack because of how cheap Tomasek is and because of just how bad this Islanders PK is.
Yeah, and Dave Rittich is Dave Rittich. The Canucks are the Canucks. Vancouver Canucks, the 2.6 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.4. Duchesne skated this morning, and then they ruled him out. And these lines are just an assumption. Johnston, it was an assumption by one of the beat writers, or a couple of the beat writers. Johnston, Robertson, Sagan, Hintz, Rantanen, Steele, and then the bottom 6 is just a bunch of guys. Vancouver mixing up their lines as well. They're going Pettersson, Garland, Drew, O'Connor, DeBrusk, Besser, Hedel, Kane, Sherwood, Aturati. Start on the Vancouver side. I have no faith of these lines sticking. This is a bad matchup. It is Casey DeSmith, but he was actually a really good backup last season.
Yeah.
If anything, for me, it would be Hedel, Besser, DeBrusk. But, they're 16,300, and that's just a tough price going into Dallas when we've talked about the McDavid line is less, Columbus 1 is less. You know what I mean? So I don't really like Vancouver here. On the Dallas side, this is interesting because without Duchesne, these lines might actually stick. I like maybe.
No.
Probably not.
No, I honestly don't think so.
Yeah. So like if you assume Hintz and Rantanen go out against Pettersson and they drag, Hughes and Hronik out with them, I don't mind Johnston, Robertson, Sagan here. Whether that sticks together remains to be seen, but Johnston and Robertson have kind of stuck together. I don't mind a two-man there. Like Vancouver generally is fine defensively. Demko's been fine, but that second pair, Pettersson, Myers, isn't the worst second pair you've ever seen, but Johnston and Robertson can beat them. So, like, I don't mind that Dallas line, but, like, it's just conjecture at this point what the lines are actually going to be. This doesn't have a early lock time. There are swaps available, and, yeah, you can get prepared for that. But I think I would just stick to pairs here, Johnston, Robertson, or Hintz, Rantanen.
Yeah, I'll start on the Vancouver side. It's another one of those situations where if this was a 7 or 8 game slate, I'd be giving serious consideration to the Canucks for a couple of reasons. One, listen, their power play has been bad. I think they're at like the top units at like 63 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Like that's good for a 5-on-5 line. It is god awful for a power play. But Dallas has been taking a lot of penalties. They're at 4.3 times shorthanded per game this season. They were worse than league average in this regard last season. Vancouver could draw 3, 4, 5 power plays here tonight, and Hedl, DeBrusk, and Besser are perfectly correlated, coming in with absolutely no ownership. That's part one. The other part is they're probably going to avoid the Haskin and Lindell pairing. I imagine that pairing goes out quite a bit against Elias Pettersson. So you avoid that pair, and Harley and Lundqvist are good, but they're more offensive than defensive, and the third pair hasn't really found its game yet. So that Hedl line's going to get, I think, good, like not good, but better matchups at 5-on-5. And they're perfectly correlated with a chance to see a ton of power play opportunities. It's just with 22 teams, like, do I want to chase a Canucks team that honestly has not been very good offensively this season? Like I said, their power play has just been dreadful. So like if this was a 7 or 8 game slate, then I'm considering them. On a slate this large, I'm really not, but honestly, there's just something about like a perfectly correlated line that's honestly not that bad of a power play spot that is going to see secondary 5-on-5 matchups that just really does interest me. There's no sample for this line really, obviously, because Hedl didn't play a ton for them last year, and this is a new line combination for this year. But I do have a little bit of interest. I just wish it was on a smaller slate. On the Dallas side, like you said, just play your pairs. Robertson and Johnston, or Hintz and Rantanen. Like those are the pairs that are probably going to stick together. The Dallas top power play unit's actually been pretty good. For all the haranguing we've done about playing Harley over Haskin in the top power play units, like they're like 12.5 expected goals per 60 or something. Like they've been fine. They've been good. So not super concerned about it. And the Vancouver PK has honestly not been that good. 5th most expected goals against per 60. What has saved them in each of the first 2 games, and that's Thatcher Demko being arguably the best goalie in the NHL. Now he's only played 2 games, but he's really. I think they have a .928 save percentage on the PK. I mean, that's not going to keep up. So I would probably do, like you said, the pairs Hintz and Rantanen, or Robertson in Johnston. If you want to make it 3-man, I would probably do Hintz, Rantanen, and Robertson, just because that's actually been their most used line combination of 5-on-5 this year. Because even though they start on separate lines, they end up playing the most together throughout the game. But again, I do have some interest in the Hedl line. I just wish it was a smaller slate.
Yeah, it is Casey DeSmith, Nick, not Jake O. If you haven't, go watch that Emily Kaplan thing with Jake Ottinger about being pulled in Game 7. Ooh, you can hear him holding back what he really wanted to say about Pete DeBoer. Should have just let it rip. It would have been great TV. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.6 total. Heading into Anaheim, the Fighting Frostbacks have a 2.8 total. This is Super Bowl number 5 for Frostback, I think. Carolina going Aho, Jarvis, Ehlers, Stankoven, Blake, Hall. Is that right? Or is that where they moved him in game?
Taylor Hall, he got moved to that line in the last game. I've been looking for Carolina lines. Either they haven't skated or nobody's reported anything, but I haven't seen anything about Carolina lines yet.
Yeah, and then Stahl, Martinook, Carrier, and then Svechnikov on the fourth line. What Rod the Bod does that stuff. He did it last year. He just like rotated like 4 guys in that spot. We'll have to see. Anaheim going McTavish, Gauthier, Bennett, Seneke. That line got expensive really quick. Vetrano, Terry, Granlund, Kreider, Carlson, Killorn. Now we have to see what Carolina line, the second line is, whether it's Svechnikov there or Hall there. I'll start on the Carolina side. Listen, I have been a big Aho Jarvis Ehlers stacker to start this season, but at 20,400 is a little expensive for me. At that point, I'm just going up to Colorado. At that point, I'd rather even go to Winnipeg, I think. They do have a 14.6% top 2 stack, 4.3% projected ownership. I'm not totally convinced that Anaheim's awful defensively. Like Trouba, yes. But like their young guys have played pretty well. Like I have no issue going to Aho Jarvis Ehlers. But again, like for me, my personal preference, if I'm going above 20,000 here, I'm just going to Colorado. That's just how I build with my one lineup. Again, if you want to play them, I'm not going to be. If you DM me and you show me a Carolina 1 lineup, I'm going to tell you that's perfectly fine. They're fully correlated. They're a great line. I just prefer Colorado in single entry. The second line is where it gets interesting to me. Whether it's Hall, whether it's Svechnikov, the analysis remains the same because they've been sending out the McTavish line against top comp. They've been sending out Carlson, Kreider, Killorn against the second and third lines. Chris Kreider is going to do a lot of good for them on the power play. Defensively, he is not going to help them. And he's really going to drag down Carlson and Killorn. They're probably going to be playing a fair bit of pond hockey with Kreider there. I think for me, if I was going to play Carolina here tonight, it'd be the second line, regardless if it's Hall, regardless if it's Svechnikov. You don't have to full stack. You just go Stankov and Blake and call it a day and don't even have to worry about it. So it would be Carolina 2 for me. I do really like Carolina 1, but that price puts me into a range where I'm just going to go play Colorado. On the Ducks side, this is a pretty tough matchup. Like that Aho Jarvis Ehlers line is going to be very, very good at both ends of the ice. That Stankov and Blake line has been very, very good at both ends of the ice to start the season. You know the pedigree of the Stahl line. And it's not like the McTavish line's like 12-4 like they were a few like last week. They're 15,900. That's a really tough price to pay against Carolina. I'd probably go back to Carlson, Kreider, Killorn at 14,400, but that's MME only. So I'm really only interested in Carolina 2 in 1-3 max. I think Carolina 1, obviously a great play, but that's more MME for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing with Carolina 1 is you can just pay a little bit more and go play Colorado. Also, you can play that Draisaitl, McDavid, Thomas 6 stack that we talked about for about the same price. So like there are just other spots to go. Like one of the reasons why we stacked a lot against the Ducks last year was that they took a lot of penalties, right? They haven't been taking penalties so far this year. 2.3 times shorthanded per game. It's the 6th lowest rate in the league. And it's like over a full power play less given up per game than the league average. So like if they're a more disciplined team, not taking a ton of penalties, all of a sudden this isn't really a good power play spot for Carolina. So, you know, not a good power play spot for a line that's over 20K on the road. I think that's an MME thing for me. I agree with you on the second line. It's just a matter of whether it's Hall or Svechnikov. Like, I'd be honest, I'd play the line either way, regardless of who's on that line. It's just that we may not know until warmups. You know, and this is one of the last games of the slate to lock. There are only 3 games starting at 10 o'clock Eastern. So, you know, you might have to start if you want to play that line, start it with Svechnikov. and then go down to Hall, and then maybe you can upgrade a defenseman that you have in the late slate or something. But like, the Carolina second line, 79 shot attempts per 60 so far this season. Jackson Blake, who's not even on the top power play unit, has 20 shot attempts in 4 games. So like, he's certainly been shooting the puck quite a bit, even without the top power play time. Stankoven and Blake are first and second on the team in share of even strength ice time per game. Now, part of that is Carolina is using their top line on the top power play unit. So when they come off the ice, it's the second line that goes on for the even strength time, but they are at the top of the team for even strength ice time per game. So like, they're getting decent amounts of ice time. They're going to avoid the Jackson Lacombe pairing probably for the most part. So I agree with you on Carolina too. As far as Anaheim goes, like, I'd honestly probably play Kreider, Carlson, Killorn, just because the Anaheim top power play unit has been so good to start the season. The Carolina penalty kill is typically good year after year. They've only allowed 1 power play goal against so far this season, but the Anaheim power play has been a lot better. The Anaheim top power play unit's getting like 70% of the ice time as well. So I think it'd be Kreider, Carlson, and Killorn for me, but on a slate this big and where they're not really a filler stack price, probably just out on the Ducks forwards. For me, this is a Carolina 2 game.
Frost back down bad, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Pittsburgh Penguins, the 2.6 total. Heading into Los Angeles, the Kings have a 3.4. I just went and looked. They officially declared Kopitar as a game-time decision, which is the worst possible outcome if you are interested in stacking the Kings. And, like, I don't even know what they would do if Kopitar is out. Like, do they just move Turcotte up and call it a day, or they just completely, like, nuke their lines? Like, I don't know what Jim Miller would do.
I think they might do something like move Byfield up and then, put, like, Turcotte with, like, Armia and Fiala or something like that. Like, I can't imagine they're going to put Alex Turcotte on the top line without Kopitar. You know what I mean? So... But he does definitely jump onto one of the middle 2 lines. So,
yeah, Jim Hiller, also notorious donkey, but we just won't know. And this game's at like 10:30 p.m. Eastern. That's basically Saturday for you. So, like, I did have some interest in the Kings here, but it's just like, if Kopitar's out, that hurts their power play. It hurts their top line. I don't know what it does for Byfield. Don't know what it does for Fiala. It's just hard to project. So, like, I guess the Kings would become MME for me, and I'd have to be by my computer at 10 p.m. Eastern to see rushes to adjust my CSV if I had a bunch of Kings. So it's like, I guess you could do like a one-off Kempe, one-off Fiala, one-off Byfield and go about your day. It's just not what I really wanted to do. They have a 3.4 total. It's tied for the highest home total, second highest home total on the board. So it's just like, I'm kind of out on just stacking the Kings. I guess you could just have some Kopitar, Kempe, Kuzmenko in there, and if he's out, you adjust to it. I don't particularly love it, though. So Kings, I'm going to be doing some one-offs. Pittsburgh 1 is interesting to me. Crosby, Rust, Raquel, 18,300, 7.1% top 2, 2.1% projected ownership. They're kind of in that tough price range because you have the Vegases there, you have the Devils there. I'd probably throw them in that mix. It's just, the Kings without Kopitar, their goalie, or Grubauer might be, or not Grubauer. Whoever their goalie is hurt. Is it Grubauer? No, Grubauer is the Kraken goalie. Darcy Kemper. So, I don't mind Pitt 1 here. I think it's just more of an MME play just because there's other lines in that price range that I prefer. But if you want to go to the GOAT, Justin Brazeau, Mantha, and Malkin, they've been ridiculous to start the season. Does the wave crash at some point? For 12,100 MME, I think you can find out. But this game's a lot less appealing on the King side now that Kopitar's a game-time decision. I like Pitt 1, but they're in a weird price range.
Yeah, what I will say is that, the Kings' top power play has been pretty good. Obviously, it was good last year after they traded for Andrei Kuzmenko. The top power play units at 143 shot attempts per 60 minutes so far this season. Like, just doing some rough math, that's about 20% better than your average top power play unit. Like that top power play has been really good. The thing is like they're one of those 3 late games that lock. What I will say is that they're 16,700. We'll talk about Vegas next, but the Eichel, Stone, Barbashev line is only $500 more expensive. So if you have a defenseman from one of the late games that you can swap down to, or you leave $500 on the table and Kopitar's out, you can just swap over to the Eichel line. Like a $500 difference, like leaving $500 on the table wouldn't be a big deal. So there is a swap that you can make in that regard. Or, you can make sure, Byfield's only $100 more expensive. So if you have even just $100 and Kopitar doesn't play, even if Byfield's not on that line, he'll be on the same power play unit as those guys. So you can just swap Byfield in. I do think there are ways to go around it. So I don't mind Kings 1 here just because of how good their power play has been. I'm going to be honest, the Pittsburgh side kind of interests me more for 2 reasons. One, the Kings are the most penalized team in the league so far this season. They've given up 22 power plays in 4 games. This was the problem at the start of the season for them last year. Now they got better in the second half of the season, but it took months for them to adjust. Maybe it takes months again. Maybe it's just a 1-week blip. But if I'm MMEing, I do think you have to consider Pitt 1 here. I will say like in that 18K-ish price range, I'd probably rather go play the Rangers, probably rather go play Montreal. We'll talk about Vegas here in a second. I think there are lines I'd rather play, but in 20 max 150, I think you do have to consider the Penguins just because they might get so much power play time. That Penguins second line has been legitimately good. I know we like to talk about Brazeau, the best player ever, scoring a goal per game, et cetera, et cetera. But that Pittsburgh second line, 71 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Both Malkin and Mantha over 12 shot attempts per 60 minutes individually. That's about league average. And Brazeau's over 20. Like they're generating a lot. And, going into Los Angeles, they're probably going to see a fair bit of Cody Ceci because they are the second line. That's probably what you want. So I honestly don't mind Pitt 2 as a filler. They're not my favorite filler. Pittsburgh is very interesting to me here tonight with no Kemper, with Kopitar possibly out, with them taking a ton of penalties. I know it's a low total for the Penguins, but if I'm 20 maxing in 150, I give the Penguins a second look here because I do think they're interesting. And again, the Kings 1 has my interest here tonight. And I do think there are swaps you can make if you're worried about Kopitar.
Yep. Let's get to the last game on the slate here. Boston Bruins with a 2.5 total. Heading into Sin City, the Golden Knights have a 3.5 total. Of course, I didn't load up the game here. Just give me a second. There we go. Vegas going Eichel, Stone, Barbashev, Marner, Dorofeyev, Hurdle, Carlson, Smith, Saad. Boston going Pasternak, Geeky, Lindholm, guy. Vegas, very interesting here. Hampus, Lindholm still out. That's big. Also, at home, Vegas, they don't really hard match, but they do send out Carlson a fair bit against the top comp. So, that does a couple things. It gets Eichel and it gets the Hurdle line away from Pasternak. And then after you get past that, after you get past the Bruins top pair, it's a mess for them right now. Marner, Dorofeyev, Hurdle, 17,900, 14.4% top 2 stack, 15.7% projected ownership. They're fully correlated. Now, they've been together, I think, 2 games now. I'm not going to cherry pick the sample of them not scoring because they have been creating. They are fully correlated. Obviously, they're one of my favorite plays on the night, 17,900. For a third of the ownership, though, Eichel, Stone, Barbashev is $700 cheaper. You still get 2 of the 3 on the top power play. They're facing similar matchups. Everyone just, sees a new really cool line combination and the ownership goes there. But Eichel's still their best player. Stone still contributes when he's healthy, especially on the power play. Barbashev has been with Eichel for seasons now. So, like, I don't mind going to Eichel, Stone, Barbashev for $700 cheaper and a third of the ownership. If you want to play Vegas too, obviously fine, fully correlated. I still do really like the Eichel Stone line. The Boston side, the only line I consider is the Pasternak line, but they're pushing $19K on the road in Vegas with 4% projected ownership. That's MME only for me.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of playing Boston one here at that price and on the road. Like, I'd honestly rather go play Pittsburgh. And then, we talked about Montreal earlier. We talked about the Rangers top line. There are just other lines in that price range I'd rather play. So I'm basically out on the Bruins forwards. On the Vegas side, kind of agree with you on Eichel, Stone, Barbashev, like at a third the ownership. That really is fairly interesting to me. We know they were good last year and the year before. Eichel over 20 shot attempts per 60 minutes individually. Eichel skating about 21 minutes a game. This isn't necessarily a spot where you want to attack Boston's penalty kill. Boston's average by time shorthanded per game, top 10 for fewest shot attempts against on the PK, top 5 for expected goals against on the PK. Jeremy Swayman's been very good. Like, this isn't a spot where, I want to attack the Boston penalty kill necessarily. Maybe it'll be worse with Hampus Lindholm, but I'm not super concerned about 3 power play guys versus 2. So, considering a fraction of the ownership, how well Eichel's playing with all the ice time that he's getting. For me, this is about Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev. If you need a true filler, I think Carlson Smith and Saad is definitely playable. Like, if you're playing, Colorado 1 plus Makar or something like that, you need a 10K or less line. I do think Carlson Smith and Saad is fine. I'm not really that worried about the middle 6 matchups from the Bruins. Or even if Carlson goes out against the top line, the Bruins top line's been playing pond hockey back and forth. But for me, this is an Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev game. If you want to go play the Marner Dorofeyev hurdle line, like, no issue with that. If I have 2 comparable lines, and to me they are comparable, I'll just go to the one that has a lot less ownership.
Yeah, if it was a great power play spot, I'd probably lean the other way, but let's talk about defensemen here. We have 4 guys, 7K and up. Werenski, Makar, Hughes, and Yossi. Bouchard is right under there at 6,800. I think Werenski and Makar, both really, really strong plays here. Makar's $100 cheaper. It really just depends what your build is. Like, if you want, I think going expensive defenseman here could be a nice way to get a unique build. I'm fine with Werenski or Makar. I think both are fine. Don't particularly love Quinn Hughes. Like, Yossi, I think, is a fine one-off. Bouchard, I really, really like here tonight. So there are some spend-up options if you want them, and I think it's a nice way to get unique here tonight. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mentioned in the YouTube chat a little bit earlier, but Werenski and Makar have the exact same point per dollar projection, 1.69 here tonight. I think both are fine. But I personally had to play one or the other. It'd probably be Makar, because I think it's a really good power play spot for Colorado. I think my favorite expensive defenseman is Evan Bouchard. Now, he's projected for the 3rd most ownership of any defenseman here tonight at about 12%. But like I said earlier, I think Edmonton is in a great power play spot here tonight. So I really do like Bouchard. You save a bit of over $1,000 compared to Makar and Werenski. Better point per dollar value, 11%, 12% ownership on an 11-game slate. I really don't care. Mid-price range, there's honestly not a lot that I really like there. I think Jake Sanderson's fine from Ottawa. Like Thomas Harley, Vince Dunn, they're okay. Like Darnell Nurse, especially with Wallman still out, I think he's fine. Neil Pionk for Winnipeg just because of the ice time he's been getting. But for me, it's almost like a stars and scrubs night on the blue line. Like, either pay up for Makar, Bouchard, Werenski, and then, punt one of the guys. Like, I think Mike Riley from Carolina is just fine. Brett Kulak from Edmonton as well. Jordan Spence, 3 assist night. Jordan Spence had the most even strength ice time of any Ottawa defenseman last night. Like, from, healthy scratch to number 1 even strength offensive defenseman. Now, there was a lot of power plays, so that's why it wasn't Jake Sanderson, but Spence really starting to earn the trust of the coaching staff already. Cam York is back for Philly. He's under 3K. A little bit more expensive, like Brady Shea from Nashville is playing like 22, 23 minutes. He's perfectly fine. Sean Walker, again from Carolina, he's still under 3K. Vladislav Gavrikov for the Rangers, I think is perfectly fine, playing on that top pair with Fox. Caden Goalie is projecting well at 3,500. So he's fine in that price range. And also Braden McNabb for Vegas. Certainly don't mind playing McNabb again. He's always in line for a shot block bonus.
Let's talk about goalies, even though I don't want to. Vegas, Aiden Hill left the last game. I don't know if he's going to be playing, but if he doesn't, it'll be Akira Schmid between the pipes. Casey DeSmith is up there. If I'm spending up above 8K, it's probably for Jakub Dobiš. I think that's probably where I'd go, 8K or above. I don't generally spend up there. In the mid-range, there's a fair bit of guys that I like. I know the Jets' blue line is a bit rough, but Hellebuck at 7,800 I think is still fine. Igor Shesterkin, 7,600. It's been great to start this season. Saros is all right. If I'm spending down, I think I'd rather go with Dostal or Artur Sivos at, I butchered that last name, but 7,100. If Demko starts, 7K, I think he's fine. And honestly, like if Swayman starts at 6,900, you have to consider him. Any goalie under 7K, you have to consider getting that amount of shots on him. So I think, if you're not a big spend up guy, this is a pretty decent slate for spend down options in that.
Yeah. The top on the board for stochastic projections is Jake Allen, which I think makes a lot of sense against Florida. Again, bad power play spot for them. They've had middling 5-on-5 results as it is. So Jake Allen, 7,900, perfectly fine here. I think Anthony Stolarz for Toronto also makes a lot of sense. Leafs do give up shots. And as you said, the Rangers have been having a tough time finishing. Jakub Dobiš, I think, is okay. I'm still worried about playing an unproven goalie like that at 8K. Like, honestly, at that point, I'd rather just go play Allen or Stolarz. But I do think Allen, Stolarz, and Dobiš amongst the expensive goalies. For cheaper goalies, I did have interest in Decord. Then we found out Grubauer was starting, so I have no interest in Seattle's goaltending anymore. I think Lucas Dostal for Anaheim makes a ton of sense at 7,300, just because Carolina will offer so much shot volume. And I'll say Jeremy Swayman at 6,900. Like, if you really need a punt goalie, Swayman's looked really good to start the season. Boston does give up shots. Their penalty kill's actually been good, so maybe he sees a lot more 5-on-5 volume than shot volume against on the PK. So if you do need a true punt goalie, I don't mind going down to Swayman, but I'd probably try to find the extra few $100s to go play Dostal.
Yep, we should be back tomorrow for the 4-game slate. GPPs have generally been fine when there isn't NFL. So look forward to that at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Going to Dallas, going to a guy who's put up monster shot volume to start the season, at least shot attempt rates, and that's Jason Robertson.
For some reason, this keeps sticking out, and it's just awful, and it's so spicy. But we're going to do it. Ridley Greig.
Okay. That would be something else. I would love to see that tonight.
Yeah, that would be something. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us for the hour and 20 we were here. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Good luck tonight.
Good luck tonight, everyone.